I'd like to welcome to the podcast today Ann Liguori, who's one of America's leading sports journalists. I think her main claim to fame is how long in London that she's been doing this. She's interviewed some of the great baseball players from the early eras, people like Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris, from our perspective today. Um, she's also a golfer herself, and she um, covers golf for different menus, most notably here on the East End, WFAN, and also the WELI,
WLIW.
the LIW FM station. And I want to start off by asking you how you got interested in covering sports. Where were you born and raised, and how did you get in touch with sports in the first place?
Well, first of all, it's great to see you, Dan. You're such a legend, and it's always great to talk to you. I grew up in Ohio. I'm a Midwestern girl, and it was a small town called Brecksville outside of Cleveland, and had an older brother who was very involved in sports. So everything he did athletic wise, I did. And I just loved it. I would be the first one picked on the teams because, at that point I could run faster than all the guys. And I played every sport imaginable. Everybody would come to our backyard after school. And then in high school, I played 4 sports every year and I earned 16 letters. And I just liked the variety of sports. I was always a naturally gifted athlete and just always liked being active.
Were you called in that era a tomboy?
Oh, yeah. Or a jockette, I prefer. So, yeah, I just loved it. In the fall, I played volleyball, in the winter, basketball. And in the spring, I went from running sprints and doing the long jump for the girls' track team to playing on the boys' tennis team, because when I was in high school, we did not have a girls' tennis team back then. So I was able to compete on the boys' team. And when I was a senior, I played #1 singles on the guys' team. So, yeah, I think it taught me a lot about just competing, with and against guys. And it taught me a lot that I basically have taken into my world of sports broadcasting and into my business life as well, because, since I've been involved as a broadcaster, it's, the field has really been dominated by guys. And I feel very comfortable with guys because I've always, competed with guys on the golf course or on the tennis court. So it was kind of like a natural transition.
What was your first sports reporting gig?
Oh gosh, even when I was in high school, I used to be the public address announcer for the boys basketball team. And but professionally, my first job was at CBS Sports. I had come up to Manhattan out of my University of South Florida days, and it was with the International Radio and TV Society Fellowship, and it brought about 20 graduates to Manhattan, and it was a great place to basically start. I never left. I came to New York right out of college, and my first job with that fellowship was with CBS Sports. And we had interviews with all the movers and shakers in the industry. And I was just so impressed with everything CBS Sports was doing, from the Masters to, NFL football, all the games. And, at that point, they had the rights to the Olympics. And I was so impressed. I knew right away that's what I wanted to do, to stay in sports broadcasting and really pursue that as a career. But my very first professional job was at ABC Radio Sports. If you can believe it, it was a huge job for a kid right out of.
Yeah, I would think so.
And guess who was working there at the time, Dan?
None
other than Howard Cosell.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Everything. So what happened, I was on the job for the first week, and, I was a freelancer because at that point, I wasn't full-time anywhere. I was freelancing, writing for USA Today, the sports page, and I was hired as a freelance producer at ABC Radio Sports Network. And so I had just started my ABC radio sports gig, and Howard Cosell did a commentary in the morning that was to be repeated that afternoon. And he made a mistake. It's been a long time, so I can't remember exactly what the mistake was, but he said something that was not completely accurate in his commentary. And it was going to go out again in the afternoon. It was going to be repeated in the afternoon. And as the producer at that point, it was my responsibility to get it ready to go out again to be distributed to all the ABC affiliates in the afternoon. So I heard the mistake, and I told the engineer, I said, we have to call Howard and let him know that he made this mistake, and just to redo that one line in the commentary. And the engineer looked at me like I, had three heads. Like, nobody calls Howard Cosell at home. Are you kidding me? Certainly not you, who just started. He doesn't even know you, which was true. But I found his number somewhere, and I dialed him myself, and much to the dismay of the radio engineer, he picks up the phone, Howard. He was at home. He had a studio in his house. And when I told him about the mistake, there was this long pause, and he said, do you know who I am, young lady? This is Howard Cosell. I don't make mistakes. Well, I thought my career was over. I was in my early 20s, and I just figured, what else do I say at this point? He didn't even know who I was. And he said,
that was good. He didn't know who you were.
I know. I said, Mr. Cosell, you're normally flawless. You are normally perfect. So if you just redo this one line, it will be absolutely perfect, and everybody will be very happy. And so he did it. He was grumbling the whole time, but he redid the line. We edited it in the radio commentary, and it was perfect. But he never forgot my name after that, Dan. And I think he did respect me, and we had wonderful conversations after that when I would see him coming into ABC. But when he came to work at ABC, people shook in their shoes. They were so intimidated by him.
Yeah.
Back then, there weren't that many commentators in sports. There were only, ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox, right?
Right. No, not Fox. Not Fox.
Not Fox. ESPN was just starting. So
yeah, Fox wasn't around then, well, back when you're talking about.
Yeah, maybe there were just 4 networks, right? So he was one of the big guys. And I just think, as a young person, I think sports gave me a lot of confidence. My athletic career as an amateur, somebody interested in a variety of sports, and somebody who was able to compete in high school and in college. I think that really helped me in the business world and in my sports broadcasting career. And I figured, hey, if I'm the producer, it has to be perfect. So he was amazing to work with. He could do a commentary for 60 seconds and not look at a stopwatch. He just knew when to finish. Wow. He was such a great orator.
He was, and also just on the borderline of annoying.
Very annoying, right? But
you've done a lot of traveling for sports. They send you off to Timbuktu and Kalamazoo or wherever. Where is the most interesting place that comes to mind that you've been, and what did you cover there?
That's a great question, because I love covering the Olympics. I love covering golf. I've been all over the world, not only to play golf, but to cover golf. But I was thinking with the Olympics happening, I was thinking about all the Olympics I've covered, and I loved going to Nagano, Japan, where I basically covered Alpine. These are Winter Olympics. I've covered some summer games, but mostly I was the broadcaster for Alpine. And in Nagano, I was up in the middle of nowhere on a mountain, staying in a B&B owned by a Japanese family that spoke no English. They had no television with American news on it. Talk about being completely isolated. But the mountain was only about 20 minutes away, and that's where, a lot of these top skiers performed. And Hermann Maier, they used to call him the Herminator, the great Austrian skier. I was doing play-by-play of his downhill run when he wiped out, and nobody thought he would live. he went wide on a gate, smashed into a fence, and landed in knee-deep powder, thank God, or else he wouldn't be alive today. And later that day at the press conference, somebody asked him, "So what happened with your fall?" And in a thick Austrian accent, Hermann Meyer said, "I flew 30 feet in the air. It was a good flight, but it was not as good as Lufthansa." So he made a joke about it, and then he went out and won the gold the next day. So
My God,
just traveling all over, it's hard to just pinpoint just one place, because I've had the opportunity to, go to South Africa on a golf, wine, and safari trip.
yeah,
And I love Ireland. Ireland has some of the most incredible golf courses in the world. Just when you think you've seen the most beautiful links course on the ocean, you go 10 minutes down the road and there's another incredible links course. So, and our country, Dan, we have some amazing places right in our own country. I just got back from Idaho and Coeur d'Alene Resort, and then this golf course called Circling Raven. And it was just, I loved going to Bandon Dunes and Oregon and, Pebble Beach. I mean, golf is normally, when you go to play golf and you go to cover these events, they're normally in the most gorgeous spots on the planet. That's why they build these golf courses. So, playing golf and covering golf takes you to some pretty incredible spots.
yeah. The Montauk course out here in the Hamptons is
Montauk
really
Downs.
probably one of the 10 best public courses in America.
Yeah, and that right here on the east end of Long Island. I mean, you said Montauk. We have, so many great golf courses, from Shinnecock that's hosts so many U.S. Opens, and Sabonic and National, and Maidstone, where I have my charity golf event coming up in September. Just beautiful golf courses.
What's that hole where you hit the fairway is right in back of the dunes, and you can hit the bathers if you slice?
We're at Maidstone?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Which one? What number is it? Now you're testing me. There's so many great holes there. And then there's that par 3 right on the ocean, right in that might be it. I think it's number 8. Just beautiful golf everywhere. We're blessed to be out here, and, it's our own backyard. I played in 3 member guests in the last 6 days. And, we're just in the whole New York metropolitan area. We're blessed with great golf courses, but particularly out here in the east end of Long Island.
Have you ever interviewed Tiger Woods?
Yes, many times. I covered every major championship that Tiger won. So
if you think about it, he's changed himself dramatically over the years, from the 18-year-old who played Shinnecock all those years ago as a first professional game. I think he had to resign it because he pulled an arm, his shoulder, whatever. But I thought it might be reflected in how his demeanor and how he goes through an interview. Were you able to see any changes? And if you have, can you describe what you saw? Because he's extraordinary.
Absolutely, Dan. That's a very good point. He's the greatest golfer ever, right? Greatest golfer of all time. Some people might disagree, thinking Jack Nicklaus is the GOAT. But I definitely haven't covered Tiger from the very early part of his professional career. And even today, with that car accident, he's got seriously injured. So he's, not playing. He's just hoping that he can walk normal again at this point. But I definitely saw a huge transition in his personality, and how now he makes himself more available to fans and spectators. He signs autographs now. He has a lot of friends on the tour. Justin Thomas and Tiger are very good friends. Justin's always texting him to ask how he's doing, and Ricky Fowler. And there's this whole kind of professional golf contingency who live down in Jupiter, Florida, and where Tiger lives. And they're all very tight now. Tiger's matured a lot. He's been through a lot, all that controversy that he basically initiated. And then again, all the injury and all the, all the pain. I mean, he took a lot of painkillers, and he had a problem, and he sought help for it. And when he came back, he seemed like he was a whole different guy. And then when he was healthy enough to play and then won the Masters,
I know, that was amazing.
that was amazing. And what was so special about it for him, aside from winning again after everything he'd been through with, you know, the controversy in his personal life and then the injuries that he suffered and, you know, the back pain and just the tremendous pain he was enduring as a person. But what was amazing is his kids were old enough to see him win for the first time, and they were there at Augusta National to watch him. And I think that's why we have seen a nicer, more mature Tiger Woods, because he's trying to be a great dad, and he knows that his kids can go online and read about the scandals and all the negative things that happened to him at one point in
When
life.
he first started, was he so focused as to be fairly inaccessible? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, completely inaccessible and not that friendly. He just had tunnel vision, which is great, but he really, you know, you hear a lot of bad negative stories, and he wasn't friendly with anybody, and he was hard to like. He never would give interviews to the media, and he would never make himself accessible. And he's a really fun guy. He has a great personality. And now, as you know, obviously with all the wins now and his career, pretty much his professional golf career behind him, you know, he got to a point where he could be himself, and he showed that side of him, which is nice. It's great to see. Look, you always root for people, right? You root for their recovery, you root for positivity, and that's what we have seen with Tiger Woods.
Now, you've accumulated over the years hundreds of interviews, and you have them in a safe place, I presume, and it's quite a collection. Early on, you said, you had told me earlier that you had interviewed Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris when they were supposedly. Are they there? Are they in that collection?
Yeah, I never interviewed Roger Maris. Roger had passed away a while ago. I have over 500 of these half-hour TV interviews, and my very first TV interview was with Mickey Mantle back in 1989. And I did something that I you know, when I look back on it, I was quite brilliant, I guess, but I was forced to do it because I maintained the rights to all the interviews because I went out and brought in my own sponsors for the show.
Yeah.
MSG Network said, Ann, we like your work. We can give you a time slot, but we can't pay you. So I had to figure out a way to get the show on the air. So I went out and brought in, you know, my own sponsors, and 17 years later, the show is still going strong. It's called Sports Interview. But yeah, Mickey Mantle was my first guest, and he did get very teary-eyed when he talked about his late friend, Roger Maris, because when he played, they were going after the same baseball records, and the media kind of pitted them against each other as if they were intense rivals. But just the opposite, they really loved each other as friends. And when Roger got sick and was in the hospital, Mickey was telling me how he'd go and visit him every day. And we were at Mickey Mantle's restaurant in Manhattan for the interview, and we were in a booth, and Mickey said, "This is the Roger Maris booth." And he grabbed a ball from the wall, and he showed me the ball, and it said, "To Mick, my best friend, love Raj."
Yeah.
And he got teary-eyed when he was telling that story because, you know, Mickey was such a great storyteller, and he was quite sentimental in his older years. You know, I was just a kid. I was in my 20s when I did many of these interviews, and I would interview these legends that were, you know, well into their 60s or 70s, right? And they were so thrilled to kind of just tell their stories and share their success stories with me, which I so greatly appreciate. They were much older and so willing to talk. I didn't have to pay them. I didn't have to go through a million agents just to get the interviews. They all were pretty, I mean, I worked hard to find the right people to talk to them, to connect to them, to get them on the show. But, you know, nowadays, I don't think the kind of show I did could be possible to get all the top sports legends. I mean, I'd have to work really hard, but a lot of the agents just say no. But back then they wanted to share their stories. So Wilt Chamberlain, Jim Brown, Gordie Howe, Ted Williams. That's one of my favorite interviews.
What was he like?
Ted Williams, well, you know, he had a love-hate relationship with the Boston baseball fan base, but when I interviewed him, he was older, much older, I guess late 70s, maybe early 80s, and he wasn't well. And his son, John Henry, and he got connected again. They were, for many years, they hadn't seen each other. But John Henry came into his life and was taking care of him. So I was actually playing golf in Florida, and I had learned that John Henry lived nearby this golf course, Black Diamond. So I thought, gosh, I need to interview Ted Williams. If it's the last thing I do, I have to get an interview with the great Ted Williams. So I went to John Henry's house, knocked on his door. He wasn't there, but his wife answered. I introduced myself and I said, please give your husband my name and number. If his father, Ted Williams, is ever available for an interview, I would love to sit down with him. And I got a phone call a couple of days later from John Henry, who was in his, I think, late 20s at the time. And he said, listen, my dad's going to be back in Boston for the All-Star game at Fenway. And why don't you come up with your camera crew then? And I will make sure that he will sit down and talk to you after his nap. He'll be sharp, and he'll be, you know, because he wasn't really well then. Yeah. And that's exactly what happened. I went up to Boston, set up my camera crew in the hotel, and Ted came out and he gave me 45 minutes of incredible material. And he was so pleasant, and he was so appreciative that he was still around and could go back. I'm sure you remember the footage. He was at Fenway, you know, riding around in the golf cart and, you know, waving to everybody, and he got a standing ovation, and he came back just a totally transformed, you know, person, because he was saying how much he appreciated everybody. And he admitted that he was irritable and had somewhat of a love-hate relationship with, you know, the Boston media and the Boston fans back when he played, but he came back as lovable and as humble as ever. And he was a baseball genius, really. And I just so enjoyed every second of that time that I spent with, you know, talking with Ted Williams.
What do you mean a genius? How do you mean that?
Well, he just knew so much about the game.
Oh.
You know, about the, you know, just about the science of the game. And, you know, he could basically, you know, he could look at a younger player, and within a minute or two know whether that player was going to be a superstar or not, you know. And somebody said that his eyes were so incredibly sharp that he could see the rotation of the ball coming to him before, you know, he hit the ball. And he just knew the fundamentals and just knew he had the great baseball instincts, right? I mean, you don't get, you know, that legendary and compile, you know, the records that he compiled without having some kind of genius, right?
Did you ever interview Carl Yastrzemski?
No, I did not. I wish I could have, but I haven't. No.
Yeah, he was, for those that don't know, he was one of the great Boston Red Sox players who grew up on a farm in Bridgehampton. It's from out here. And the nephew, also named Yastrzemski, is currently playing for the San Francisco Giants. Is not the star that Yaz was, but he's carrying the torch, I guess.
I love that.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for this interview. I've enjoyed it. We've run out of time, I think. And so why are you on a boat? That's my last question.
Well, we just enjoy being on the boat. You know, look, the Hamptons has some of the most amazing waterways in the country, right? It's so beautiful. The Hamptons is so beautiful by land, but by water, it's gorgeous as well. So yeah, we're spending some time this summer on the boat, and we just love it. So here we are. And I know, I think it looks okay, right?
Yeah, it
this
looks fine. The
Zoom
work.
is like a miracle. You can do Zoom from anywhere. I just, hopefully the lighting's good. I had to kind of
No, you
figure
look
out the
gorgeous.
right angle.
You look just fine. And
I'll see you at the artist writers softball
oh
game.
yes, you will.
I'm
And, oh,
looking
you
forward to
played.
that.
Let's spend a minute or two on that. Uh, what position did you play when you played, or have you most recently played?
Well, they normally put me in, Ken, our fearless manager, Aletta, normally puts me in as a pinch runner. I used to play softball when I was a kid. I haven't really played much lately because I'm so busy playing golf and tennis and swimming and all the other stuff, biking. But I normally pinch run because I can run, and I can hit. So he normally puts me in a hit, but they have these players, Dan, as you know, who play softball on a regular basis every
Yeah,
weekend.
yeah,
So they put those guys and gals in, which is fine. But as long as I can get in, I remember I every time I go to bat, I seem to connect on the ball. Sometimes you don't, and sometimes you miss, and sometimes you hit. But I remember one year they put Jimmy Leyritz, who used to play with the Yankees,
yeah.
on our writers team. And that was like unbelievable. Everybody was like negotiating who gets Jimmy Leyritz. Well, he had just written a book, or somebody had just written a book for him. So he became part of the writers team. But it's always fun to see some of the ringers that these, the artists and the writers can come up with. I wonder this year who our ringers will be.
We have a mascot this year.
Oh, I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, like Mr. Met, or the Atlanta. It's a big bird, 7 feet high, with a yellow beak and yellow feet, and it's a piping plover.
Oh, well, that's appropriate for our
It's the
area.
biggest piping plover we've ever had. They usually come about 3 inches.
I love it. I see piping plovers. They used to be endangered, and they've we've here in the Hamptons have helped protect them, right? So I think that's a very appropriate mascot to
Yeah,
have at the
well,
game.
if anybody hits a home run, he's going to run out on the field and lead a cheer.
I love it.
We've got it figured out.
That is so
Anyway,
great.
so I'll see you there. It's August 21, Saturday afternoon, 2:00, and it's free to get in, and it's behind the Stop and Shop in East Hampton and Herrick Park. So I'll see you there.
And
thank
you are so much a big part of that game, Dan. It's so wonderful to see you there year after year, and we can't thank you enough for everything you do for that rich tradition here in the Hamptons.
And I'm talking to Ann Liguori, and it's been a nice time to have you on the show. Thanks very much.
My pleasure, Dan. Thanks so much.
Bye.